Welcome to our next panel. Mr. Robbins, good to see you again. George Luna and Robert Barton. Let's start with Mr. Robbins. We'll go in the order of the agenda. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you, and thank you for talking about this subject. I'm here as a representative of a group called the Actors Gang, a group I founded 35 years ago. We work for the last 10 years in the correctional institutions in the state of California. We're now in 10 prisons. I just want to talk a little bit about the program so that we can put arts in corrections in a little bit of context. We're not there to do plays. We're certainly not there to try to turn these incarcerated men and women into actors. There is way too much unemployment. It's not a good career to suggest to these people. We are there to introduce the rigorous discipline and generosity of working together towards a common goal. We're there to provide a safe environment for incarcerated men and women to express emotions that have long been dormant or deadened by their incarceration. In our classes, our students play characters, and through these characters, discover shared emotions. I've witnessed transformations. I have seen broken men and women heal. I've seen shut off, cynical men and women turn into open, sentient human beings. I'll give you an example of one of the exercises. About 5 classes in, we take all of the characters, and I get everyone up on stage, and we take all of the characters to a funeral of one of the other characters. And we see these hardened men and women start to express the emotion of sadness together. They've all been to these funerals, or worse yet, they could not attend the funeral of a loved one. And so through these characters, they reach a state of sadness. And then at that point, the facilitator will say, now look at each other. And at that moment, we see barriers break down. We see hardened individuals seeing empathy in each other. And that creates a bond that breaks down racial barriers, breaks down gang barriers. The bonds made in these rooms, oftentimes we are told by these men and women, the bonds made in these rooms are far more significant and meaningful to them than the bonds that led them into a life of crime. So what we're doing is working. The barriers break down in the class first, and then on the yard. And when they break down on the yard, we see a much safer environment, a different kind of culture emerging in the prison. We've had a recent study that shows that the men and women that have been through our programs, there's been an 89% reduction in 115s. 115s are in-prison infractions. This leads to an environment that is less punitive and more about rehabilitation. It encourages teamwork, support for each other, collectivity, community, self-confidence, better relationships with family members that come to visit, and a significant reduction in recidivism. We have preliminary studies that suggest that those that go through our program have a 10.6 recidivism rate. Now, if I was a representative from a pharmaceutical company, and I came to you and said, I have a drug that reduces in-prison infractions, in-prison violence by 89%, and leads to a 10.6 recidivism rate, drug would be fast-tracked. I'm here to tell you that that drug is the arts. We don't think about the arts that way. But the arts can achieve these effects a lot less expensively. I'm an example of the benefit of arts funding. When I was 14 years old, I went to a very difficult high school. And before that, I was a very good student. And then I was a failing student, a C- student. I lost all self-confidence. I found theater. Theater gave me a reason to go to school that day. That was the only reason I went to school. Without it, I could have easily have fallen into another way of living. Dropping out, drugs, prison. A lot of my friends did in my neighborhood. Instead, I took the path offered me by creative people in my public high school. And instead of Sing Sing, I wound up in Shawshank. Now, that trip to the penitentiary paid the federal government back for my arts education to the tune of $2 million in 1994. Arts education works. It creates more creative individuals. You see, investing in an arts education is an investment in the safety and health of society. 2012 National Endowment for the Arts Research Study concluded that teenagers and young adults who come from low socioeconomic backgrounds and have a history of in-depth arts involvement show better academic outcomes than their peers who have less arts involvement. Specifically, students with high arts involvement have higher test scores, better grades, more likely to graduate from high school and attend college, participated in student government and extracurricular activities at a higher rate, were more likely to have volunteered recently, and were more likely to vote or participate in political campaigns. Now think of that. The more you fund the arts, the more young people will be volunteering for your next re-election campaign. Now, I have been doing this for the last 10 years, and I've seen how it works. I've seen the impact. Most of the men and women we work with in prison have had little to no arts education in their schooling. There's a direct connection. Arts education is the prescription for the transformation of a failing system. Building more jails will not make us safer. Building better schools will. And we all know that better schools have robust arts education programs. Arts in corrections works. It has an incredible impact. The same is true for arts in community settings, where local arts programs make cities and towns safer, helping to break the school-to-prison pipeline. This work is led by the California Arts Council, the state agency that was given a $6.8 million increase from this committee last year, and thank you for that, to foster community health and safety through arts grants. I encourage you to champion a return of this $6.8 million as an ongoing allocation to the Arts Council budget, as ongoing commitment to California leading the way in creating more humane and effective policies in correction and rehabilitation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you so much.